Sometimes a film has kind of a silly premise, and it portrays it fully seriously. I think these kinds of films work very well generally. Pride and Prejudice and Zombies is one such film. It's based off a novel that was a parody of Jane Austen's famous novel from 1830. It's the early 1800s. England is besieged by zombies. There is a large swath of zombie-infested no man's land around London. The five Bennet sisters have been trained in martial arts in China because their father, played by Charles Dance, aka Tywin Lannister, wants them to be able to defend themselves from the zombies. Mrs. Bennet, however, only wants to see her daughters marry wealthy men. Aside from the zombies, so far it's very much in line with the original Pride and Prejudice in basic plot and structure when it comes to relationships between the characters. Jane and Mr. Bingley fall in love. Colonel Darcy falls in love with Elizabeth and is impressed with her zombie killing. Elizabeth herself is initially only frustrated with how emotionally shut off Darcy is, kind of coming across as an ass. Fans of any other adaptation of Pride and Prejudice might like to see the comparisons. The role of Elizabeth was originally going to be played by the other Keira Knightley, Natalie Portman. She was originally going to star as Elizabeth Bennet in addition to producing, but ended up quitting the role later on while staying on as a producer. It could have been interesting to see her as Elizabeth. Instead, Lily James plays the part. She played Cinderella in the Disney live-action adaptation, and the waitress Deborah in Baby Driver, among other great roles. The biggest star names besides Charles Dance as Mr. Bennet are probably Lena Headey as Lady Catherine de Bourgh, Darcy's aunt, and Matt Smith as Mr. Collins, who tries to marry Elizabeth. He plays the character's stiff but excited awkwardness very well. So, most characters and general plot points aren't structurally super different. But then there's this Gaston-looking motherfucker. This is Mr. Wickham, who Elizabeth is initially attracted to. He has a fraught relationship with Darcy, just as like in the original novel. In this, because he may have murdered Darcy's father and squandered his inheritance. He takes Elizabeth to a church full of zombies who feed on pig brains. Zombies who do this apparently keep their intelligence, and Wickham wants the zombies and humans to try to live in peace. Kind of like some characters in the show iZombie. Wickham wants to marry Elizabeth and run away with her, but she leaves, and later Wickham kidnaps her younger sister Lydia. Darcy follows them to London, which Wickham wants to overrun with an army of intelligent zombies. Darcy stops his plan by feeding the zombies human brains, which kills off their intelligence, and gets saved from Wickham by Elizabeth. They flee back across the last bridge over the River Thames, and it gets blown up. Darcy is injured by the explosion, and Elizabeth ends up admitting she loves them. Darcy recovers, proposes a second time, she accepts, and they have a joint wedding with Mr. Bingley and Jane. The final scene of the film shows Wickham charging the wedding with a horde of zombies and the four horsemen of the zombie apocalypse. The film is absolutely amazing in my opinion. The soundtrack is top-notch. It gives a really neat new spin on a timeless story with new and interesting direction for some of the characters. It doesn't really deliver on all its promises in world-building, however, such as with the four horsemen of the zombie apocalypse. And I wouldn't recommend it either if you want to watch it for the romance alone. But it's definitely not a film that should be ignored if you enjoy the horror aspects. Wait, they're making a sequel?